Hello from Mindset Daily, wishing you a day full of health, peace, and happiness. Thank you for watching the Mindset Daily channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support us. Thank you so much. Have you ever shared a big dream, only to feel your motivation disappear afterward? Why do some people lose momentum the moment they speak about their plans? And what if staying silent is the most powerful move you can make? Before you assume this is about being secretive or dishonest, let me clarify. That's not the message here. This is about recognizing the powerful difference between sharing your dreams and sharing your results. It's about understanding when to protect your mental and emotional energy, and from whom. Because here's the truth. Not everyone you talk to will support you. Some may be dream stealers. Others may be well-meaning, but deeply misguided. And some are just emotional drains. People who can unintentionally sabotage your vision before you've even taken the first step. That's why guarding your ideas early on can be one of the most important moves you make towards success. Most people get this completely backwards. They rush to announce their intentions before doing any real work. They tell the world about their grand plans before they've taken a single meaningful action. They go looking for approval and validation from people who, in reality, have never achieved what they're aiming for themselves. And then they wonder, why does my excitement fade? Why have my motivation gone? Why do I keep stalling when it comes to following through on my biggest goals? Here's what I've learned after years of studying success and human behavior. The moment you declare your goals out loud, you begin to give away your power. That initial surge of energy, the drive that comes from a new idea, starts to weaken. Why? Because now you've opened the door to other people's opinions, doubts, and judgments. You expose yourself to noise, and that noise can drown out your own conviction. Every person you tell becomes a silent judge, and most of them, they're not even qualified to have an opinion on your dream. Think about it like this. When you have a powerful idea, something that excites you, something that could change your life, that energy is like a small but fierce flame. It's pure potential. It's alive. But every time you share it, especially too early, you're exposing that flame to the wind. And while some people may blow gently with curiosity or support, others, they'll blow harder, doubts, criticism, even fear, without realizing they're extinguishing what you've just ignited inside. Some people will blow so hard on your flame, they'll extinguish it entirely. That's the danger. And the hardest part? You often don't know which kind of person you're talking to until it's too late. Here's what separates those who succeed from those who don't. The person who says, "I'm going to start a business," usually doesn't. The person who actually starts a business, they don't say much, they just get to work. One talks about losing weight. The other quietly changes their eating habits. One talks about writing a book. The other opens their laptop and starts typing the first page. Do you see the difference? One is talking about doing, the other is doing. Now, let me be clear. This isn't about isolating yourself from the world or becoming some sort of secretive hermit. It's not about hiding your dreams out of fear. It's about being intentional with who you allow into your inner world and when you allow them in. There's a time for sharing, and there's a time for silence. Wisdom is knowing the difference. Let's talk about the psychology of announcement, because this part is powerful. When you tell people about your goals, something fascinating happens in your brain. You get a small burst of satisfaction, a mental reward that feels like you've already made progress. Psychologists call this social reality. The illusion that simply talking about doing something is almost like doing it. And that's the trap. You talk, you feel good, you feel like you've already started, but you haven't. And that sense of premature accomplishment dulls the drive to actually take action. That's why so many people become excellent talkers, but poor finishers. But here's where things get even more interesting. When you keep your plans to yourself, when you work in silence, something shifts. All that mental energy that might have been lost through conversation stays within you. It builds. It sharpens. It fuels your actions. Your focus intensifies. Your momentum grows. And your vision becomes clearer. Instead of spreading your energy thin like a light bulb, you become a laser, concentrated, targeted, effective. And lasers cut through anything. The people who achieve extraordinary things don't feel the need to broadcast their intentions. They understand that loose lips don't just sink ships, they sink dreams. They've learned that the best time to talk about what you've done is after you've done it. They understand a powerful truth. Results speak louder than intentions. And so they let their results do the talking. Think for a moment about the most successful people you know. Seriously, calm the mind. How often do they broadcast their next big move before making it happen? How often do they look around for validation before taking action? Probably not very often, right? That's because they've learned that real success comes from within. It doesn't require permission. It doesn't wait for applause. They don't need someone else to tell them their dream is valid. They already know it is. They understand that success is an inside job, and they move forward confidently without waiting for outside approval. Now, let's address something critical: the dream stealers. These individuals may not even realize the damage they do. Some act with good intentions. Others act out of insecurity or fear. But their effect is the same. They plant seeds of doubt where certainty was starting to grow. Dream stealers come in many forms. Sometimes it's your family, saying they just want what's best for you. Sometimes it's your closest friends who get uncomfortable when they see you change because it reflects back their own stagnation. Sometimes it's colleagues, quietly threatened by your ambition. And sometimes it's complete strangers on the internet who somehow feel entitled to criticize your path. The dream stealers carry an arsenal of subtle but powerful weapons. Words that sound like concern but are really veiled resistance. They'll say, "It's already been done," or "You're not qualified enough." They'll tell you the market is too saturated, that you're too young, too old, too inexperienced. Too much of this or not enough of that. They'll remind you of every failure they've heard about, every person who tried and lost everything. They'll drown you in statistics about how few people succeed, and they'll wrap it all in the tone of realism, as if they're just trying to help you see the truth. And here's what makes it even more dangerous. Many of them genuinely believe they're helping you. They don't see themselves as negative. They think they're being wise, grounded, practical. But what they're actually doing is projecting their own fears, their own insecurities, their own belief systems built on limitation, not possibility. They're not describing your future. They're reciting their past. They're offering you a borrowed worldview, one shaped by fear, failure, and self-doubt, and asking you to adopt it as your own. But you don't have to. You can choose to protect your vision. You can choose to guard your energy. You can choose to move in silence, not because you're afraid, but because you're focused. And this is exactly why silence is so powerful. When you don't announce your plans to the world, you give the dream stealers absolutely nothing to latch onto. No fuel for their doubts, no opening for their negativity, no entry point for their fears to leak into your vision. You protect your momentum. You preserve the purity of your intentions. You keep your energy focused and your conviction strong. But there's another reason why staying quiet about your plans is so crucial, and this one might not be so obvious. See, when you tell people what you're going to do, you're actually making a public commitment. Now, at first glance, that might seem like a good thing, right? You might think that declaring your goals out loud will help hold you accountable, that it'll push you to follow through. But here's what really happens beneath the surface. Public commitment creates pressure, and pressure creates stress. And stress, over time, begins to crush creativity and drain enthusiasm. Suddenly, you're not just doing this for yourself anymore. You're performing. You feel watched, judged, measured. Every step you take starts to feel like it has to be perfect because people are waiting to see if you'll succeed. or fail, you begin to second-guess yourself. You start choosing safe routes, not bold ones. You start worrying about how it all looks rather than what actually works. Your vision gets clouded, not by your own doubts, but by the expectations of everyone watching. And when that pressure builds, it can be paralyzing. You might give up at the first setback, not because the goal was impossible, but because you didn't want to keep failing in public. You might rush through important steps, trying to produce quick results just to meet imagined deadlines. You start making decisions to avoid embarrassment instead of to ensure success. In short, public pressure can derail your entire process. Now contrast that with working in silence. When no one knows what you're doing, you're free. You have complete space to explore, to experiment, to make mistakes without explanation. You can fail, pivot, shift direction, and no one needs to know because you're not performing. You're creating. There's no need to justify your decisions. No pressure to prove yourself before you're ready. You work at your own pace, on your own terms, following your own intuition. And in that space of quiet focus, that's where real breakthroughs happen. This kind of freedom, the freedom to build quietly, is incredibly valuable, especially during the earliest stages of any meaningful pursuit. Those early moments are fragile. It's when you're still figuring things out, still learning, still stumbling through your first mistakes. It's the phase where confidence is easily shaken and progress is slow. And during this vulnerable stretch, what you need most is patience, privacy, and protection, not judgment, unsolicited advice, or skepticism. When you keep your plans to yourself, you give that vulnerable beginning a safe place to grow. You give your ideas time to mature, your habits time to develop, and your momentum time to build without outside interference. Now let's talk about timing, because yes, there's a time to share what you're doing. But it's probably not when most people think. Most people feel compelled to share their plans right at the beginning, when excitement is high and hope is fresh. That's when the temptation to announce everything is strongest. But in truth, the best time to share is when you have results, not just intentions. When you have something real to show for your efforts, that's the moment to speak. When you've tested your idea and it works. When the business has launched. When the first sale has been made. That's the kind of proof that speaks volumes, more than any hopeful projection ever could. Here's a simple rule of thumb. Don't tell people what you're going to do. Tell them what you've already done. Don't announce your launch date. Celebrate your first sale. Don't talk about your business plan. Talk about your first customer. Don't explain your weight loss goals. Let them see you walk in healthier and stronger. Don't talk about your book idea. Share the finished manuscript when it's ready. This quiet approach benefits you in more ways than one. First, it shields you during that delicate planning and trial phase, when your confidence is most vulnerable. Second, it ensures that when you do finally share, you're doing it from a place of strength, not hope. Third, it makes your words more impactful because now you have evidence, not just vision. And fourth, it builds your reputation. You become known as someone who gets things done, not just someone who talks about getting things done. But beyond all that, there's also power in mystery. When people see you making steady moves without constantly broadcasting your every step, when they notice growth but don't quite know the source, you create a sense of curiosity and respect. You become someone they watch, someone they talk about, someone who clearly isn't driven by validation or the need for attention. They begin to see you as serious, focused, intentional. The kind of person who's quietly building something real while others are busy talking about it. This kind of reputation, the one built in silence through consistent action, is incredibly valuable. It attracts the right kind of people into your life. People who admire discipline. People who respect focused ambition. People who want to be surrounded by others who are serious about growth and success. At the same time, it repels the wrong kind of people, the ones who thrive on gossip, drama, and minding everyone's business but their own. It keeps the distractions away and invites alignment. It subtly positions you as someone who leads rather than follows. Someone who creates instead of just consuming. Now let me share something with you that I call productive paranoia. It's the healthy suspicion that not everyone genuinely wants to see you succeed. That doesn't mean becoming negative or distrusting everyone you meet. That's not the goal. It's about being realistic. It's about understanding human nature and making smart decisions based on that understanding. The truth is, your success will make some people uncomfortable. Why? Because it forces them to confront things they've avoided. It exposes the gap between their excuses and your results. It makes them reflect on their own lack of action, their unfulfilled potential, or their stagnant habits. Some people will absolutely cheer you on, but others? They'll criticize you, quietly resent your progress, or try to downplay your achievements. Some may act supportive, but deep down, they feel threatened by your momentum. You can't control how people react to your success, but you can control how much access they have to your process while it's unfolding. That's what productive paranoia is really about. It means being intentional about who you allow into your creative space. It means being wise about who hears your plans, who sees your progress early, and who gets a seat at the table while you're still building. Not everyone who claps for you is on your team, and not everyone who smiles wants you to win. Sometimes, people will use the information you share against you. Maybe not out of malice, maybe not even consciously, but it happens. And if you're not prepared, that can derail your focus. That's why part of your responsibility, if you're serious about success, is protection. Protect your energy. Protect your ideas. Protect your vision, especially in its early stages, before it's strong enough to withstand the criticism and noise that often comes with visibility. Doing this doesn't make you paranoid in the negative sense. It makes you strategic. It makes you someone who treats success like what it truly is, a responsibility. And part of that responsibility is creating and preserving the right conditions for success to grow. Now, let's talk about something that might be on your mind, the loneliness factor. Some of you may be thinking, but if I don't tell anyone what I'm working on, won't I feel isolated? Don't I need support, encouragement, and accountability? Those are real, honest concerns, and they deserve a real answer. Let's explore that next. First, it's important to understand the difference between sharing your process and sharing your plans. They may sound similar, but they serve very different purposes. You can absolutely talk about the work you're doing without revealing where it's all leading. You can talk about the skills you're building, the habits you're developing, or the effort you're putting in, without exposing your long-term goals to unnecessary judgment. In doing so, you still receive human connection and encouragement, but you avoid placing your vision under a microscope before it's strong enough to stand on its own. You preserve your direction while still allowing space for community and support. Second, and this is key, if you feel like you must share your plans with someone, be extremely selective. Choose carefully. Share only with people who have already walked the path you're on or who are seriously committed to similar goals. Look for people who have earned the right to speak into your life through their example. Choose people who are naturally positive, discreet, and genuinely supportive. The ones who won't spread your plans like gossip, and who understand the importance of protecting your energy, not draining it. 1 or 2 trusted confidants are far more valuable than a crowd of casual acquaintances who know your business but don't share your vision. Third, and perhaps most importantly, remember this: the most powerful support you'll ever have must come from within. Yes, external encouragement feels good. It's comforting. But if your motivation depends on applause and approval from others, your foundation is fragile. You're building something big on unstable ground. Because when those voices disappear, or worse, turn negative, where does that leave your drive? You have to learn to be your own biggest believer. You have to find fulfillment in the work itself, not just in the praise that may or may not follow. You must train yourself to stay consistent and motivated even when no one is watching even when nobody claps, and even when no one understands what you're building. The people who achieve the most in life are often the ones who can work in silence. They don't crave constant feedback. They don't rely on attention to stay consistent. They've developed an internal rhythm, driven by purpose, not praise. And that brings us to one of the most overlooked truths on the journey to success. Self-reliance is not optional. It's essential. Because at some point, you will feel alone. There will be moments when even your closest friends and family just don't get it. There will be seasons where progress feels invisible and belief feels rare. And yes, there may even be times when those you thought would support you begin to doubt you instead. But if you've developed the strength to depend on yourself, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, these moments won't derail you. They won't break your stride. They'll sharpen your focus. Because your foundation won't be built on external noise. It will be rooted in your internal truth. If you haven't yet realized this, they will. Working in silence gives you a powerful, often underrated competitive edge. Think about the world we live in today, where oversharing has become the norm. People post their breakfast before they eat it. They live stream their workouts. They announce every goal before even taking the first step. In this culture of constant noise, the person who chooses quiet, deliberate action stands out more than ever. While others are busy broadcasting what they intend to do, you're quietly making it happen. While they're seeking likes, comments, and digital applause, you're refining skills, building infrastructure, and gaining real ground. While they're distracted by opinions, analytics, and superficial feedback, you're zeroed in on execution, on meaningful progress, not meaningless performance. And this gives you several critical advantages. First, you're not signaling your strategy to your competitors. You're not giving them a blueprint to follow. They can't copy what they can't see. They can't block a move they never saw coming. And they can't prepare a response when they have no idea what's in motion. This level of invisibility allows you to stay 2 steps ahead, quietly but effectively. Second, you're free from the burden of public expectations. You can pivot without explanation. You can adjust timelines without fear of disappointment. You can experiment, adapt, and refine without looking indecisive or inconsistent. And in a fast-moving world where things change daily, that freedom is priceless. Because success isn't just about having the right idea. It's about being able to adjust quickly and wisely when circumstances shift. Working silently gives you that flexibility. It allows you to evolve without having to justify every move or explain every delay. Third, and perhaps most practically, you're not burning energy on distractions that don't move the needle. You're not spending hours crafting perfect updates for social media or engaging in endless conversations justifying your journey. You're not managing public perception or seeking validation from people who have no stake in your outcome. Instead, every ounce of energy you have is directed at what matters most. Your growth, your progress, your results. In a world obsessed with attention, silence has become your secret weapon. All that time and energy you save from not constantly explaining yourself, it gets funneled straight into meaningful, productive action. This is what I call the stealth mode advantage. You're building behind the scenes, away from distractions, without interference. You're making quiet, consistent progress, moving forward without creating noise, developing real strength without having to defend your strategy. And then one day, when you're ready, you reveal the results. Not the plans, not the promises, but the actual accomplishments. And that's when the impact truly hits. Think about it. Isn't it far more impressive when someone suddenly shows up with a thriving business, a dramatically transformed body, a best-selling book, or a mastered skill, without ever having talked about it nonstop? It feels like they came out of nowhere, but the truth is they were working the whole time, just in silence. People only see the outcome, not the sweat, discipline, and hours that went into the process. This contrast between visible results and invisible work creates a powerful impression. It sends a message that you're someone who executes, not just someone who talks. In a world full of announcements and intentions, results still speak the loudest. Now let's talk about why silence isn't just a discipline. It's a focus amplifier. When you're not constantly updating others about your progress, when you're not absorbing endless advice, feedback, and unsolicited opinions, you preserve something incredibly rare in today's world: mental clarity. You're not scattered across conversations, distractions, or people's doubts. You're locked in. You're not just doing the work, you're immersed in it, fully present. No dual tasking between building your dream and explaining it to people who may not understand it anyway. And here's the truth. Focus has become a superpower. Most people today can't sustain their attention beyond a few minutes. They're pulled in every direction by notifications, news feeds, and noise. But those who produce extraordinary results are different. They protect their attention like it's their most valuable asset, because it is. By working in silence, you're creating a sacred space for deep work. You're carving out mental territory where real growth, mastery, and progress happen. You're no longer reacting, you're creating. And that's the difference between living life on autopilot and designing your future with intention. You give yourself the best possible environment to produce your best possible work. It's in this space of focused, undisturbed action, where your mind is fully engaged, that the real magic happens. This is where skill transforms into mastery. This is where ideas turn into real value. This is where you begin to build something meaningful, something that lasts. But let's be honest, you can't reach that level of depth if you're constantly interrupted by the need to explain yourself to others. That mental tug of war, that pressure to justify every step you take, robs you of the clarity required for real progress. Let me tell you about something I call the announcement trap. It's one of the most subtle yet dangerous obstacles to achievement, and it kills more dreams than failure ever will. Here's how it works. You get excited about a new idea, a goal, or a project. You're feeling that initial burst of energy, and naturally, you want to share it. So you tell everyone, friends, family, coworkers. And what happens next? You get applause, encouragement. That's a great idea, they say. I believe in you. And that feedback feels amazing. It gives you an emotional high, a sense of satisfaction. But here's the problem. That recognition, just from talking about it, triggers the same part of your brain that would be activated by actually achieving it. It creates a false sense of accomplishment. Your brain gets the dopamine hit, and you haven't even taken a real step yet. And then, without realizing it, your motivation fades because your brain thinks the mission is already complete. You got what you were unconsciously seeking: validation, recognition, a little ego boost. But the actual work hasn't even begun. This is why so many people are great at starting, but terrible at finishing. They drain their emotional energy by talking instead of channeling it into action. Their excitement burns out in conversation, rather than being fueled through discipline and results. So what's the antidote? It's simple, but powerful. Get your satisfaction from doing the work, not talking about it. Get your emotional reward from seeing progress, not from promising progress. Let your results speak, not your intentions. When you shift your focus in this way, everything changes. You no longer chase applause, you chase outcomes. You're no longer performing for others, you're building for yourself. And when you stop announcing, when you stop looking for validation before you act, something powerful begins to unfold. You begin to build a deeper trust in yourself, not because someone else believes in you, but because you're proving it to yourself through your actions, your discipline, and your quiet persistence. You start to lean on your own judgment more often. You stop second-guessing every step just because it doesn't fit someone else's opinion. And most importantly, you develop a sense of inner confidence, a kind that doesn't need applause to exist. This self-reliance becomes the foundation of every meaningful success you'll ever build. Why? Because at the end of the day, your progress doesn't depend on whether others cheer you on. It depends on your own ability to make wise decisions and follow through consistently, even when no one's watching. Other people's belief in your journey is nice, sure, but it's not essential. Your belief? That's both nice and non-negotiable. Now, as we start to wrap up this message, I want to leave you with a few practical ways to start applying this principle in your own life. First, make a personal commitment for the next 90 days. Do not announce any new goals, plans, or big ideas to anyone. Keep it to yourself. Protect it. Let it grow in private. And if someone asks what you're up to, keep it vague but honest. You might say, I'm focusing on personal development, or I'm working on leveling up my current situation. That's more than enough. You don't owe anyone your blueprint. Second, take a closer look at the people around you. Identify the dream stealers. The ones who, even with good intentions, always seem to drain your energy or cast doubt on your ambitions. These might be friends, family, or colleagues. You don't have to cut them out of your life completely, but start limiting their access to your plans, your progress, and most importantly, your mindset. Third, if you truly feel the need to share your journey, choose just one or two people who genuinely get it. Individuals who have either walked the path you're walking or are committed to a similar journey themselves. Share only when it adds clarity or support, not when you're looking for permission or praise. That's the key. And fourth, this one is powerful. Get into the habit of celebrating your progress in private before you even consider sharing it with the world. Take time to appreciate your own hard work. Acknowledge how far you've come. Let your motivation grow from the inside out, instead of depending on someone else's applause. Because when your satisfaction comes from within, your success becomes unstoppable. Fifth, develop the powerful discipline of working without the constant need for feedback, applause, or recognition. Learn to draw your motivation from the work itself, the process of growth, the small improvements, the quiet wins that happen each day as you move closer to your goals. This kind of internal satisfaction is one of the greatest strengths you can cultivate. Why? Because it frees you from relying on other people's opinions, moods, or approval to keep going. The idea of never telling anyone what you do isn't about being cold, distant, or antisocial. It's about being intentional with your energy. It's about protecting your dreams like seeds, keeping them shielded until they're strong enough to grow. It's about choosing progress over performance, purpose over popularity. Because real success, it begins within. And the most powerful validation you can ever receive is the belief you hold in yourself. Keep this in mind. The world is overflowing with people who talk, who make bold declarations and sweeping promises. But the rewards don't go to the talkers. They go to the doers, the builders, the quiet workers who let their results do the talking. So work in silence, build in silence, achieve in silence. And then, when the time is right, let your actions speak so loudly that no one can ignore what you've accomplished. At the end of the day, the choice is yours, and the time to act is now. Your dreams are far too important to be handed over to the noise of public opinion. Your future is too valuable to be distracted by shallow conversations. And your potential? It's far too massive to be confined by the limits of external validation. So guard your goals. Protect your energy. Focus on the quiet, relentless work that turns vision into reality. Because the truth is, the world doesn't need to know what you're doing until you've already done it. And when that moment comes, your results will say more than 1,000 announcements ever could. Wishing you strength, clarity, and massive success on your journey. Stay focused, stay quiet, and remember to subscribe to Mindset Daily for more powerful insights just like this. Wishing you great health, lasting happiness, and a future full of breakthroughs. See you next time.